And we also commemorate the 500th anniversary of the victory at Mactan, the Philippine part in the first circumnavigation of the world and other related events, collectively known as the 2021 Quincentennial commemorations in the Philippines. But before we speak to our panelists, let's welcome the Executive Director of the National Book Development Board, Charisse Aquino Tugade.
Thank you, Mix, for that. How are you today?
Doing great, doing great. I can't believe it's Friday and we're at the end of April. And of course, you know what's going to happen tomorrow, right?
Well, what? It's the weekend?
No, it's going to be May.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is an exciting event. One of the many events we have under the Philippine International Literary Festival. And again, we're very thrilled to have all of you here. And also, I am very honored. So very honored to be in the same room, actually not room, the same Zoom room with all of our amazing female publishers, Miss Annie, Miss Reni, Miss Marianne, Miss Xandra. These women have really paved the way for all of us, all of the creatives, all of the authors, and we really thank them for joining us today. But before we start, I would like to pitch something to all of you. We have a very exciting, this year is quite exciting because we have grants for everyone, for all the creatives, authors, and publishers. So the first grant that we are launching this year is a translation grant. We launched it a couple of days ago during the quincentennial anniversary, and just a little bit about that. To celebrate Filipino diversity and creativity, NBD offers translation grants to Filipino authors and publishers who wish to translate and publish their books to other Filipino languages and other international languages. So for those of you that are interested in national translations, the grant is open for children's literature, graphic literature, classics, and the priority year. So every year we have different priority languages. The first one is Filipino or English to Ilocano, Cebuano, Waray, Hiligay, Noan, Brenao, Tausug, Kiniraya, and also other languages are accepted. So please do apply. Our grant is worth 6.8 million. And also we have international translations for those of you that are interested in selling your publications and your rights abroad. So this is also for children's literature, culinary literature, because we all like to cook and we all like to eat, classics, creative fiction, historical and cultural works. And this is for priority languages or Philippine languages to English, German, Spanish, French, Arabic, Japanese, and Chinese. So please do apply. And the website is booksphilippines.gov.ph/translation. So there is my pitch. And again, we would like to thank all of you for being here today. And I will turn you over again to Megs.
Thank you so much, Charisse. It's great to start off the weekend with such great energy, and I love it. I love it. I love it. And of course, it looks like you guys at NBDB have an exciting year of activities up ahead. So again, if you guys want to find out more about their programs and events, please like them on Facebook at nbdb.phil. Yes. All right. Now, this is a webinar that is being recorded live and streamed on various platforms of NBDB and its partners. And if you have questions for any of our panelists, please write them in the comment section below, and we will try to address them a little bit later during our open forum. But if you guys are lucky enough to be inside here in our Zoom, we invite you to just click on that Q&A box down there to send your questions, as well as interact with our panelists. Now, as you guys know, this is a live stream. So, bandwidths, they vary from place to place. They could be a little bit slow, they could be a little bit fast. So, we ask that you please cooperate with us during this time, just give them a little bit of understanding. You know how it is. It's Friday, everybody's getting back online and getting ready. So again, we hope you guys that you enjoy this. And of course, this Post-Pandemic Futures webcast is being presented by the National Book Development Board as part of their 12th Philippine International Literary Festival activities. And on that note, let's get things started. Today's Post-Pandemic Futures webcast topic is The Future is Female, Educating, Publishing, and Leveling the Playing Field. Our first speaker is the Vice President for Product Development at Adarna House Incorporated, one of the country's most beloved publishing companies committed to creating learning materials for children. As an advocate of Filipino children's literature and progressive education, she's also the co-founder and director of the Raya School, a progressive school that emphasizes personalized learning and the need to develop patriotism in Filipino children. So at this time, please welcome our first panelist, Ani Almario.
Thank you, Mix, for that introduction. And thank you to everyone who's gathered here at our webinar. Very excited to be part of this. I hope everybody can see my slides. I've entitled my presentation for this afternoon, Why You Should Trust Female Leaders During a Crisis, originally entitled Why Female Leaders Are the Best. And I decided to take this route because I do see how my being female has made me a better leader through this pandemic, and I'd like to share my experiences with everyone. So bakit nga ba? Bakit nga ba pinagkakatiwalaan ang mga babaeng leader kapag panahon ng krisis? Is it because we instinctively know that stacking 15 books and putting our laptop on top of that stack of books makes us look good on Zoom? More than that, in an article published in Psychology of Women Quarterly, researchers have concluded that women leaders are perceived to be more trustworthy than their male counterparts in times of crisis, specifically because of their high IEM. IEM means interpersonal emotion management, which is central to establishing or repairing trust, which is usually eroded during a time of crisis. IEM alleviates feelings of threat during a crisis by anticipating and managing the emotions of others. And I'm sure if I ask my fellow speakers, all fellow female leaders in the publishing industry, they will say that they've practiced these behaviors, most especially during the pandemic. Removing or altering a problem to reduce emotional impact, directing attention to something more pleasant, reappraising a situation to make it more positive, and modulating or suppressing our own emotional response. Okay, I'd like to share with you stories from 3 of the hats I wear. The first hat being president of the Book Development Association of the Philippines, which is the largest association of book industry stakeholders in the country. And this is really the context in which I first used the word pivot. This is a screenshot from one of my first ever meetings on Zoom. The Board of Trustees had to meet and talk about how we would lead the industry in pivoting, how we would help all the members. At siguro, dahil babae ako, ang una kong naisip ay kumustahin lahat ng members namin. So we had a survey sent out to all our members to ask them how they were operating in such circumstances, and ask them what assistance BDAP could give them. And we found out that everyone was, of course, suffering from close to zero sales because there were no brick and mortar bookstores at the moment. And then that's when we decided that we should transfer everything online. There were a handful of publishers who were into e-commerce, but we just had to convince our members to go online. So we did the first ever all-Filipino online book fair called Aklatan on Shopee last August, and then in the competing store, Lazada, in September. And it was very hard to go through the process of educating all the publishers participating about e-commerce and helping them get through it and learn everything in a jiffy in time for Aklatan. But all of the publishers who trusted us, who trusted me, were happy with how the fair did, how they did at the book fair. And this year we're doing it again. Aside from this, we also wanted to address our stakeholders who now were, especially the authors, who now had more time to write and were actually becoming more productive. They had the time to write the manuscripts that have been waiting for them to go back to. And so we had the webinar series with the NBDB back in August. And we also realized that even though there's a prevailing pandemic, literature still had to be celebrated and literature was still a necessity. So again, with the help of NBDB and Prime Trade, we had a literary festival, a 2-day literary festival in November called Pandemic Playbook. So I think it really helped that I was a woman and I was attuned to the needs of individual members and publishing groups. That's why we did these activities for BDAP. Here's another hat I wear. VP of Product Development for Adarna House, the country's first and largest children's book publishing house. At maswerte kami kasi naka-establish na yung online bookstore namin way before the pandemic. It was as if we had fantastic foresight and we had already set the systems in place. But of course, we weren't prepared to be this dependent on our online bookstore. So there were a lot of tweaks that we had to do on the fly. We were really responding to all the feedback we were getting from teachers and parents and buyers who were now looking at our bookstore or going to our bookstore more than the brick and mortar bookstores that they were used to, where they were used to buying our books in. And so we made the website more robust. And right now, I'm very proud of this online store. In fact, one of our next projects in PDAP is to encourage our members to have their own storefront. And you know, Adarna is actually women-led. And the whole product development team of Adarna is actually female. So it came naturally to us to listen to the homeschooling parents and all the moms who were telling us that they really needed stuff for their children to do, who were now with them 24/7. So they wanted activity books, so we came out with books like these, Kaya Kong Gumuhit and Kaya Kong Sumulat, and a 10-book coloring book series based on our storybooks called Magkulay Tayo ng Kwento. And then we also wanted to come out with really meaningful journals. So we came out with Malusog Ako and Kwentong Quarantine, which helped children document their quarantine days and also to look after their own physical health and, more importantly, their socio-emotional health. So we came out with these books again in record time because we wanted to respond to the pandemic. At syempre, yung pag-shift sa digital ay ginawa din ng mga eskwelahan. So we were happy that Adarna had already established as well its ebook library called Buri Books. And any school who subscribes to Buri Books gets access to our full library. And aside from that, teachers and parents can actually make their own assessment tools based on the reading materials that we've provided. And teachers can actually access metrics on their students' reading preferences, their reading comprehension, as well as their vocabulary development. So we're glad that we had developed this program, this product pre-pandemic, because it became very useful and very key for schools to continue operations with the use of software like this. Okay, and the third and final hat that I will tell you about is the hat I wear at the Raya School. I am the co-founder and school director of a progressive school called Raya. And anyone who has worked with me will tell you that I am not motherly. They will not use the word motherly to describe me at all. But I think all my motherly instincts kicked in during the pandemic. So the first order of the day for Raya was for me to check on all the staff and the teachers and to gather our guidance counselors to create the Kalinga Project. So the Kalinga Project grouped the staff and faculty of the Raya School into small groups of 4 and 5, and they would give us weekly prompts, questions, or topics that we would talk about. And it was so effective because in the time of a pandemic, we really need people that we can trust just to express our emotions, maybe to rant, to complain, to tell them about our everyday challenges that might be too mundane, but seem so huge in a time of crisis. So we were in our little Kalinga groups, and it really helped us to be a little happier, a little healthier, and a little more hopeful during our summer months. And that made us more prepared. What was important to me was that if we cared for the staff and faculty, they could in turn take care of the children enrolled with us. Tapos na nasigurado ko na okay na kami within our school, naisip ko na yung ibang school. And this is something I treasure about progressive schools. Progressive school leaders don't think twice about sharing with each other our best practices and talking to each other about how we can improve our own schools. So together with fellow progressive school head teacher Tina Zamora of Nest School, we hosted a kumustahan. We had, I think, 2 Zoom sessions where we had school principals and school leaders, and we just talked about how we could all shift to online learning and shared tips and techniques, and of course shared our complaints and challenges. And this somehow helped all of us because we knew we were all in the same boat and we just needed to reach out to everyone. And I think this is very female to be this vulnerable, to be honest about our vulnerabilities, and to admit that we need other people to get through challenges and not be ashamed of it. After that, that started my webinar career. I've done so many webinars because my main objective really is to help schools, not just publishers, but schools to get through this pandemic uh, as painlessly as we can. So we did a free webinar for school leaders, which was done a couple of times, called Don't Panic, Leading Your School as it Transitions to Online Learning. And then we did a couple of webinars for parents and teachers to help them be more prepared for virtual learning. I think I was also very productive in writing because this pandemic has helped produce three papers, which I co-wrote with educational technologist Reagan Austria. And the motivation for us really was, again, to help schools get through this. So the first paper we published was called Helping K-12 Schools Transition to Post-COVID-19 Times. And we had a roadmap of sorts for schools, steps they would take in order to help their community transition to online learning. And then when we got a lot of questions from teachers who were asking us how we could assess online and how we could grade students given the virtual learning environment, we came out with 8 principles in designing authentic online assessment. And then towards the end of last year, Reagan and I started talking about how we could really push education in another route. Maybe the pandemic was making an opening for blended learning. So we wrote another paper, our third paper, about blended learning options for schools, trying to help schools decide whether online could be a permanent part of their curriculum and teaching. Another thing that was important for me in Raya was to still be Raya. And the spirit of Raya really is for the kids to be politically woke, to be socially aware, and to be connected to their community. And it really was heartbreaking to have my kids not be able to immerse in communities that they visited before, like farmers and the urban poor and the Lumat Bakwit School students. So they made a way, and the school supported them. They had a fundraiser in April of last year called Live for the Lives. It was an online concert, and they had a game tournament called Raya Royale during this school year as well. And they raised funds for the communities that they could no longer immerse in, but they still wanted to help. Last year, when ABS-CBN closed down, we have a lot of ABS-CBN families in our school, and I really wanted them to know that the school was standing in solidarity with them, and this was a big issue for the school. So we came out with the image you see on the right of a Raya school student within the ABS-CBN logo, and these were important to me. Live for the Lives and coming out with statements online like this are important to me because I want my kids to know that despite the pandemic and despite us going online with school, they still have their voice and they can still be heard. So to sum it all up, from my experience during this pandemic, being a female leader really means being empathetic. Okay, I might be a stickler for efficiency and following the scheduled tasks, but I will listen to you and be considerate of your problems. It means being decisive, and I know that women are often portrayed as being wishy-washy, but really, all the women that I look up to, especially in the publishing industry, especially in times of trouble and in a crisis, they're really very decisive. They know what to do in order to save their family and their community. Being a female leader means being resilient, and this doesn't mean that there aren't times when I cry or break down or feel really depressed or frustrated. But I still wake up every morning and go back to work because I know a lot of people depend on me. And of course, being a female leader means being able to and being good at multitasking, because this is what women are expected to do. This is what women are very good of doing and what we do every single day. Thanks.
So much, Annie, for that. And it's wonderful that you've come up with these different dialogues, especially like with the other progressive schools, that is, when you did Raya. Creating I think that's the one thing that a lot of people just have figured out during these times, like via Zoom, is we're all creating dialogues for things that have been in our heads for this whole time. So it's a different process that you have to get used to. So I guess my question for you is, like, when you're doing the shifting to online, how do you collaborate like how do you find that way to collaborate when when it's usually like that physical physical aspect? I mean, when it comes to doing online selling, that's a whole different thing, but I mean, to actually collaborate with other teachers to try to get the ideas out there when you're usually used to it being so physical.
I know it's very challenging, but I think us being a progressive school, we're used to collaboration, we're used to innovation, and we're small, so we were really thinking on our feet the first few months, and you'll be surprised, Mix, if you find out how the big traditional schools were asking small schools like us how we were going to do it, because they knew that we would come up with the quick solutions, and that we would think outside the box about these things. And today is the last day of our school year, and I'm happy that we have gone through it and we're still alive.
Congratulations. Again, things to look forward to, especially this summertime, so you get to actually enjoy your break just for a little bit. But I know that your mind is probably working so much during this time. So again, thank you so much, Annie. And of course, if you guys have questions for Annie, feel free to put them in our question Q&A box here on Zoom, and we'll answer those a little bit later in the open forum. So we'll move on to our next speaker. And our next speaker, she is a multi-awarded children's book author and publisher, and the founder and director of ABC Educational Development Center, the first children's book publishing house in Mindanao. She has also written over 30 books, including The Crying Trees, winner of the grand prize in the Samsung Kids Time Authors Award, and My Muslim Friend, which was translated into Nihongo by the Christian Child Welfare Association in Japan. 8 of her books have been translated into Bahasa and are also sold across Asia. To share her thoughts, please welcome Ann Ordinario.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so delighted to speak to you about my journey and experiences as a publisher from Mindanao. Well, right now, who wants to become a publisher? Because never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that someday I will become a publisher of children's books. I was simply happy and contented to teach children and run my school that I founded year 1993. So how did this happen? One afternoon, while I was teaching and it was storytelling time, my students asked if I could tell a different story. Ayaw na daw nila yung Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Sleeping Beauty, kasi pabalik-balik na yung mga kwentong ganon. So since I have worked with Notre Dame Broadcasting Corporation, the XND, it's the biggest network here in Central Mindanao, as a broadcaster, news writer, and script writer, it was easy for me to write a story. So I thought of writing a children's story about our culture in Mindanao. And I started with The Crying Trees. This is about the rubber tree, which is very common here in our place. I carefully planned my steps because publishing is actually a business. We have to consider a lot of things on management. It is not only coming up with books, but we have to manage the different aspects of publishing as well. So I started by attending a workshop in writing for children in Manila. During that time, Neni Santa Romana Cruz was the speaker. I met Neni for the first time and we became very good friends. She was always there providing her support regarding publishing, and till this day, she will always be a part of my journey as an author and a publisher. During that workshop with Neni, I was trying to submit my manuscript, The Crying Trees, to organizations or publishers in Manila. I saw a lot of writers and illustrators there, but when I was asking how to submit my manuscript, a person from an organization said these exact words. Sabi niya, hindi basta-basta yung mga writers dito. Hindi kami basta-basta tumatanggap ng kung sino-sino lang. I never mentioned that I worked with the media for almost 5 years and I had an experience in writing stories or scripts. And I did not mention that I was running a school. Parang simple lang, but I could never forget those words. During the time, I was holding my manuscript inside a brown envelope. Then I saw another artist. He was holding his artwork as well. Super laki pa naman yung artwork niya. They also told him the same thing. Mahirap pumasok dito, dadaan ka sa butas ng karayom. Medyo naawa nga ako kasi hawak pa niya yung artwork niya na super laki nga. So doon ko naisip, mahirap to. Walang mangyayari sa akin dito. Walang pag-asa ang mga sinulat ko na kwento dito. And I felt that my stories doesn't have a single chance to be accepted or published. And if ever I will submit through competitions, as suggested by a lot of people, it will take a very long time. So after hearing those words, I decided right there to self-publish my story. And I was really challenged to prove that I can make it in this industry. We started publishing The Crying Trees. So The Crying Trees won the grand prize in the Samsung Kids Time Authors Award in Singapore, competing with Asian books. This book is about rubber trees, which is very common in Mindanao. And I also wrote Ang Mabahong Prutas or the Smelly Fruit. This is about the famous fruit durian. And here are some photos when Senator Lauren Legarda read the book, The Crying Trees, with Miss Earth, Beauty Contest, and at the 2019 Frankfurt International Book Fair. Okay. I started with 2 books. So these are the 2 books, The Crying Trees and The Smelly Fruit or Ang Mabahong Prutas. The very first exposure of my books happened in Singapore, not in the Philippines. Mr. Ramon Rocha helped me with this. He gladly accepted my books to be exhibited at ako pang nagdala sa Singapore kasi kalalabas lang sa printing press. Sobrang dami ng tao na bumili ng libro. It was exhibited in the Philippine booth during the first Singapore International Book Fair. There were a lot of international publishers who were interested to buy the rights of the book. So nagustuhan talaga nila yung libro because the story relates to the culture of Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. Like the rubber trees, same with Mindanao, these trees are also grown in these countries as well as, of course, we can see the durian fruit in these Asian countries. I also told this story in my previous talk the other day. I finally decided to become a publisher because I experienced a lot of meaningful incidents na para bang kung iisipin mo, it's out of this world. After the Singapore International Book Fair, on my way home, eto totoong experience ko talaga, inside the plane, a woman from Malaysia was sitting beside me. She mentioned that she attended the first International Book Fair in Singapore. Then suddenly she mentioned, I will show you a very good book that I bought from the book fair. I really love the story. So she took the book from her hand carry bag and I was really surprised to see the smelly fruit. So it was a very moving moment and I felt that it was a sign from the heavens that somebody up there really wants me to write and publish stories for children. And the rest is history. After the first 2 weeks, we published more stories and most of our books were acknowledged by award-giving bodies, international book fairs in other countries as well. We don't even have a marketing team. Even DepEd, I could recall way back 10 years ago, they'll just call us here in Mindanao to inform us or to require us to submit and fill up forms because they're interested to buy our books. And we just sold our books at National Bookstore, Power Books, and I could recall Bookmark. In publishing and writing, there is also one experience which I will never forget. When I had to go to the war zone to be able to write a story about war. So War Makes Me Sad is the book that I will never forget. I brought my young children for them to see the realities of war. It was very risky because during that time, there was an ongoing war here in Mindanao. We gave food to children and their families, and you can feel their difficult situation kasi kahit balat ng saging, kinakain nila dahil sa gutom, o kaya yung noodles, kinakain nilang hilaw. I took the risk facing all the MILF, MNLF, just to write this story, War Makes Me Sad. And they were even holding weapons, and it was worth it because till this day, the book is used for therapy sessions for war-stricken children in Mindanao. War Makes Me Sad. Okay, we have a page from the book. The War Makes Me Sad is one of our famous books, which was read in a lot of storytelling sessions. Even Casey Concepcion read the story to war-afflicted and underprivileged Mindanaoan children as the national ambassador for United Nations. It was that point when I came to realize that as a writer and publisher, you have the power to change the life of every child through a story. You can help children heal or get over their traumatic experiences. Okay, next slide. We also published the book, My Muslim Friend, because I wanted to promote peace in Mindanao by writing my true-to-life story about my best friend who is a Muslim. In return, this book was also translated into Nihongo by the Christian Child Welfare Association in Japan. And the people from CCWA came to see me all the way from Japan just to ask permission to translate the story. Kasi nung time na yon, hindi pa uso yung internet. And moving forward, we also publish Malong. Okay? And one of the most successful books that I wrote is Malong the Magic Cloth. This is about the different uses of Malong. So it is the only book from the Philippines that won in the International Children's Content Rights Fair or the ICCRF in Chiang Mai, Thailand, competing with different Asian countries. Okay, next slide. Those are pictures taken in Chiang Mai. Okay, moving forward, one of the biggest projects I experienced as a publisher is to develop stories for young learners in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARM. Our proposal was accepted and this project was funded by the Australian government. We were also assisted by the Department of Education in BARM. It was the biggest project for a publishing company, creating 20 big books. Malaki yung size na yung big books talaga. And we were only given a few months to do it. It was a very difficult endeavor because it is the first time for us to top and develop new writers from the region. They have no experience, they are not writers, and it's their first time to write stories for children. Actually, they always gave me a joke. Sabi nila, Ma'am, hindi kaya mas madali na ikaw na lang ang susulat kasi pinahihirapan mo lang ang sarili mo at kami rin nahihirapan din kami. Because I have to check their manuscripts over and over again for revisions. And as head of the team, I was traveling from Zamboanga to Cotabato and Maguindanao. I took charge of supervising the stories ensuring the quality of the work, including the artworks, setting the standard quality for each book, including the final approval. So we went through rigid training, rewriting, editing, because as I said, most of them are first-time writers. But I'm so proud that we were able to produce 20 beautiful stories about Mindanao. So as you can see in the pictures, ito yung aming workshop. Ayan. So halos lahat sila mga Muslim. And all 20 stories were translated into 7 different languages. Teduray, Sinama, Maguindanaon, Yakan, Bahasa, Iranon, and Meranao. Meaning, for each story, there would be 7 books. So we did a total of 140 books for the children of BARM to be distributed in different regions. It's so amazing. So as you can see, those are the titles of the book that we made. And it's so amazing, but I could not even imagine that we were able to do it. We had a lot of workshops and meetings, from developing the stories to translating. And as I said again, this is a project that is also guided by God, because even before I was informed about this, I dream of Jesus Christ showing a big book, and he was holding the book, and in the cover of the book, you can see a lot of Muslim children wearing hijabs. So the cover was shining so bright with the light. So nasabi ko talaga sa sarili ko na ang dami ko talagang dapat na gawin para sa Mindanao. So those are the books, as you can see. And something that I'm also very proud of is some of the illustrators who came from Mindanao. Na-top din namin sila na illustrators. And I'm also proud to say that we became the first publisher to publish children's books in Mindanao. Today, ABC Educational Development Center Children's Books is a publishing house dedicated to the goal of introducing high-quality books for children that would promote the culture and heritage of the Filipino people. We are committed to publish books that contain a variation of stories with significant values that would benefit children and families. And here are some photos of our books exhibited in the Frankfurt International Book Fair. There you go. This is the latest Frankfurt International Book Fair. And the Manila International Book Fair. This is our booth. And Big Bad Wolf. Okay. And these are also our latest books right now. Next slide, please. Home is Where the Heart Lives. The Pencil Who Would Not Write, Mom's Best Play-Doh. It's a series on Play-Doh activities which we made during this pandemic. Home is Where the Heart Lives is about the earthquake that happened in Mindanao. It's a very beautiful story. I'm so grateful because I had the courage to go into self-publishing. I had the courage because of the negative words that I received when I wanted to submit my manuscript. And in return, I wrote a million beautiful words to pay back. A million words that has given hope and faith to a lot of children. And I guess my fairy tale dream really came true, to write from the heart, and that every minute of the day, at least one child is reading and holding my book anywhere, everywhere, in any corner of the world. So those are our books right now. Okay. Thank you so much. At mabuhay ang panitikang pambata.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for sharing your journey into publishing, especially in the Mindanao region. And of course, if you have questions for her, feel free to put them in the comments section on Facebook or here in the Q&A section here on Zoom. Again, for those of you that are just joining us, welcome to the Post-Pandemic Futures webcast presented by the National Book Development Board as part of their 12th Philippine International Literary Festival activities. And of course, our topic for today is The Future is Female, Educating, Publishing, and Leveling the Playing Field. And again, please put your questions in our chat box and of course down in the comment section so that we can answer those during our open forum. Now, we also have evaluation forms. So again, we'll be posting those links as well. So we'd like to get your feedback on what you think we should be featuring here or what you think about our different panelists for today. But again, the topic is Future is Female, Educating, Publishing, and Leveling the Playing Field. And we're going to be going on to our next panelist. Now, our next panelist, she is the president of Anvil Publishing Incorporated and the managing director of National Bookstore, the country's largest bookstore chain. Now, under her leadership, she has helped transform and innovate the entire operations of NBS by establishing its delivery hotline and e-commerce site and providing learning tools to more than 1 million public school children across the country through National Bookstore Foundation. Now, to give us her insights, please welcome Xandra Ramos-Padilla.
Hi.
Hello.
I need to share screen. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I tried not to wear my glasses, but I can't see. So I wanted to talk about how publishing has changed during this lockdown and how we all pivoted. I think my co-panelists have touched on that earlier. But first, I'd like to share about my Lola, Nanay Karing. She's safe and well, thank God. I do visit her from time to time when I've been tested and I feel safe to visit her. But you know, in these times, I like to think, what would Nanay Karing do? You know, I think Nanay Karing opened doors in the Philippine publishing industry. Here she is, you know, she was a one-woman show. I mean, of course, my Lola was there. He was the treasurer. But really, in terms of the book business, she was the one who ordered the books, talked to publishers, and then she even received them and displayed them and sold them. In fact, she's called the super sales girl by Nick Joaquin in his short bio of her. And you know, she would visit the stores, and you know, so her main things were like she would try to make books accessible to everyone so that more people would buy. So she brought in the mass market format, first paper books. They even used to order, she said, before she would order. Now we just send an email, but before it would take like 3 months for her PO to arrive in the US by mail. And the other things she did also was create affordable Philippine editions of some textbooks and other books, other popular books. And locally, she also developed and nurtured some authors. And, you know, I was just looking at the Nora Dasa book, which we reissued a couple of years ago. Her comment was, she had the blurb, without question, when it comes to recipes, Nora Dasa books are the most credible and best-selling. We have been selling her cookbooks for the last 60 years. I know she worked on Culinaria also. And our current best-selling cookbook author, Chef RV, credits Nanay Karing for his start in publishing. Way back when he was 16 years old, she gave him a break and published his first book, Baking Secrets, and while he was still in college. So there, and here's a book that Anvil published about Nanay Karing, written by my tita Cecilia Licauco and Yvette Fernandez, and another book from Summit Publishing, Summit Books on Nanay Karing. So if you want, you can read more about her life, and she'd love to say, read more, learn more, earn more. And I think she would remind us that she surmounted a lot of challenges during the war, selling, bartering books during the war. She went through typhoons, earthquakes, etc., and she managed to rebuild each time. Yun. So here we are now. This is our store in I think North EDSA. And as mentioned earlier, readers and book buyers used to discover books in the bookstore, and unfortunately, last year from March to May, it wasn't considered one of the essentials. Although I think books are one of the essentials in life, right? I mean, I don't think I would have survived this pandemic without my books. And anyway, I think there's nothing quite like discovering books for yourself in a bookstore. But since our movements are limited, we have opened other channels to shop books in the bookstore. So people can still buy books. So but we have these other channels. So we have chat to shop or text to order. So if you go to our Facebook, you can get the QR code, and there's a list of stores. If you want to message me, I can send you the number of the store, and our staff is very helpful and happy to help you do the discovery for you, do the browsing. We're also on Metromart. We've joined community groups. Our employees are also making videos to help people discover books. And then we have several online channels. And I just wanted to share, for example, so we have our main website, www.nationalbookstore.com. And we also have Lazada. Okay, the weird thing about shopping in Lazada is you have to look for the National Bookstore flagship store. So you have to type National Book. Then when you click on the space, flagship store comes out. You need to click on that to find our shop. But it's all there. Most of the titles in Shopee, Lazada, and National Bookstore is synced. And here's our Shopee site. You can easily find the National Bookstore in Shopee. And we have other special Lazada sites. As I mentioned earlier, we have an NBS warehouse sales site on Lazada. So for bargain books, I found a lot of things there. And the NBS warehouse sale on Shopee. I don't know if you are aware of this, but one of my favorite places is actually National Bookstore Cubao. I've discovered a lot of books there during this lockdown. And there's a special area there, separate store. It's our outlet store. And you don't know what you're going to find there. And one time I didn't buy something I wanted and I couldn't find it anymore. So, I mean, the books are really cheap and you can find some old books there that you can find in other bookstores. So that is also on Shopee with this site. So you can also find that on Shopee, NBS Warehouse Sale. So, and then on the Anvil side, we also, so sometime in May, they allowed everyone to fulfill books online. So yay, we're open. And fortunately, people were able to discover books that they can order during that time. I remember I even ordered my kids' reading list from Adarna Books, and it arrived in a few days. But I know that was quite a challenge because fulfillment at that time was challenging because the couriers aren't coming regularly. Our staff couldn't also be go full time. I mean, we couldn't have a full staff doing the fulfillment and so on. So, but yay, we are able to sell online. So we have our website, but mostly I think people buy on the Anvil Shopee and the Anvil Lazada sites. So here we are. Also, if you want to look for Anvil on Lazada, it's also Anvil Publishing. When you click on the space, lalabas yung flagship store. Then you can go to the last mall. Then you know that the books are coming from us. Kasi like let's say Ambet Ocampo books, there could be a lot of different sellers. And so here's the new bestseller list, fresh off the Facebook page of National Bookstore. Let's see what's selling now. So people are still buying books, but maybe may nag-shift ng konti about the topic. So sa fiction, it's still all the top Wattpad authors. I Love You, since 1892, Binibining Ninya. But if you look at the nonfiction, here we are, we have baking books. This is the baking secrets that I mentioned earlier. Discarte sa Kusina, Chef Tatong. So a lot of cookbooks and inspirational books. And I think, so we tried to concentrate on these types of books. The past year in lockdown, we were able to publish, I think 40, it's not exact, trade books. During the past year, everybody was mostly working from home. So even my editorial staff are not all in Metro Manila. One is in Samar. And so on, and yet we managed to collaborate to make this happen. I mean, we're still able to, the art director is still able to check the proofs from the printer and so on. So we're very proud of these lockdown releases. I mean, now that the authors have time to write, we're glad that we're able to publish them. So we have, you know, the inspirational, we have Francis Kong. It's very timely. We did a quick book from Queen Alichua based on a webinar we did on online distance learning. Ambeth was able to release Looking Back 15 Martial Law. And then we have all these Bliss books. We are actually the local licensee for Wattpad under Bliss Books. So we collaborate with the Wattpad platform to publish in print the books that are being published online. And here's a book by a memoir of Father Ben Nebres, cookbook by Chef Reggie, and then we're launching Chef Sharwin T's cookbook on May 9, so watch out for that. And some children's books, also poetry by Lord De Vera, and here's translation in collaboration with the Israel Embassy of Edgar Keret's short stories. And so, you know, if customers are on a mission in the bookstore, they should be able to, they should know about your book before they go to the bookstore, or they can shop online. So I guess the discovery would happen on social media. So National Bookstore has an Instagram, Bliss has an Instagram, and then here we are on Facebook Live doing this. So we're on Facebook also. And so we do stuff on social media, like we do pre-orders, we do teaser videos, cover reveals. We joined, I borrowed this from Reni. A curated list also helps. That helps people to buy. So if, let's say there's an occasion and we don't know why there's a holiday and it's about history, then we can share a curated list. Of course, a lot of free shipping offers on Shopee and Lazada or on the website. And then last year, the Manila International Book Fair went online, aside from the other online book fairs that Annie mentioned, and then we joined. So all those things help. I would like to say at this point that we really rely on the authors to develop a community for their readers, and they shouldn't be shy in promoting their books. It's because people are hungry for feeds from the author. So we rely on the authors a lot to help sell their books and help people become more aware of their books on social media. And then once they are aware, then we can do the rest for them. And I just wanted to show this picture. Look, face-to-face book events. We sell a lot of books during these occasions. And since we don't have them, we have learned to, so, we could have book signings before. We could have author pictures. I mean, those were the days. I even had an event like the week of the lockdown last year, like March 15, and the author was on the way, on the plane to Manila, and my organizer canceled the event, and his organizer his sponsor to go to Manila canceled the event, and he was told to get off the plane. But luckily he did, because he would have been stuck here during lockdown. In the middle there's my Lola with one of our first author visitors, Richard North Patterson. And the good news is, actually, we are able to translate this experience somewhat on Zoom. The good thing about Zoom is we can even have, like, this author from Israel. I mean, he would have loved to come to the Philippines to talk about writing and his short stories, but he was able to meet us and talk about his book on Zoom without traveling. He said, he doesn't even have shoes. We didn't have to dress up that much. So, I mean, we can all do this on Zoom. We've been able to do webinars, whole-day webinars on Zoom. And even the certificates are like digital. And so these are other book launches we've had, like on our own, or through like the Asian Festival, the Asian Children's Festival, and through the National Bookstore also has a Philippine Readers and Writers Festival. So we had that online also, MIBF, and so on. So meron pa rin. And maybe it opened doors to more authors who don't even live in the Philippines, and it would have cost so much to get them to come here. We can have them on Zoom. And I've learned to share screen, share video with audio, etc. Anyway, so and so we also use social media to encourage reading. So we've had in the past different campaigns to encourage reading. And finally, I mean, the obvious choice, if you can't shift, is that is to sell ebooks. Okay, ebook sales are really not that big for us, because maybe we need to develop the local platforms more. But we have over 100 ebook titles. They're on platforms such as Amazon, Kindle, Rakuten Kobo. Rakuten Kobo is in pesos. Parsa Mabugnok, Scribd, Apple Books, Google Play. And what's interesting about the ebooks is that even the backlist is selling. So with special interest, like ito nga, what do you call that? Paranormal is selling. I'm surprised cookbooks could also sell as ebooks, because sometimes I think you can. When you're cooking, you want to have a hard copy that you're following, and then you put toya stains on it, etc. But now we're launching ebooks and print books simultaneously, like what we did for Chef Reggie's book. And then we also took an opportunity to look into our backlist and see what we can convert into digital there. So we do the work of getting the digital rights and converting it. So at least now there's a lot of options, and we still continue to read. So I guess the issue lang about ebooks that I want to say is that digital rights management is an issue. So we need to there needs to be like a local ebook platform. I think we're working with some developers now, and like our textbooks will be on Textbook Hub. But of course, we want to protect the copyright of our authors, so we don't just want to let people forward a PDF. So actually, if you see on a marketplace that there's an ebook available and it's really super cheap, be wary, because they might not be bona fide copies, and the author would not be getting proper compensation for his intellectual property. So, yun. People might not know na, kasi diba people pass on PDFs like nothing, but it's a big deal for the author and the publisher. And so other, of course, we have other questions about ebooks as publishers. In fact, NBDB is working to redefine the book to include these digital versions. And so how do we price it? Do we price it per download? Can it be available as a subscription like Buri Books? And a lot of questions like that. So there. So I think people are still reading, and I would like to encourage authors and creators to keep on writing, lalo na ngayon that you have time to create and write. And hope to see you all in the bookstore and beyond. I would like to say that we in National Bookstore are doing our best to keep it safe, and we're taking all the precautions to make browsing safe. But generally, there's nothing like discovering books in a bookstore, and that feeling of relaxation when you're searching for something and then you find it, and you find something you've never known that exists before, and you want to bring it home and read it. I mean, that's a great feeling. And I mean, if you want to avoid the crowds, then first you go to a shelf that's not populated. And I think the bookstore side would be safe. And if you cannot go to the bookstore at this time, then see you in our online channels and social media. We're happy to help. We can transfer books from other stores and so on. And National Bookstore Anvil, you can inquire from us. There's a chat box on the National Bookstore website. You can also email onlinesales@anvilpublishing.com for inquiries. And please follow us on our social media channels. National Bookstore is National Bookstore on Instagram, and Anvil Publishing on Instagram and Facebook. There. Thank you very much. Keep reading and keep writing and keep publishing.
Thank you so much, Xandra. Yes, it's really an interesting shift from the traditional browsing versus online browsing, and you've made it more accessible to everyone. But again, what is the thing that, I mean, you said it earlier, but what's the one thing that you miss about the traditional browsing in a bookstore?
It's that discovery. It's the thrill of the discovery. Because, like, if you need the text to shop, and I've gotten a lot of books that way, you can, you need to know what you are looking for. So you want the Michelle Obama book, then you text, and then if it's there, you can just pick it up, pay GCash, pick it up, like the store in Green Hills. You don't even have to go into the store. You can get it from the guard. You drive by. Same with our Glorieta store, or and so on.
Yeah.
And so it's that discovery that, hey, you're looking for books on leadership or self-help or cookbooks. You don't really know. You want to do your research in the bookstore. So there's a lot of treasure to be found there.
Yes, that's absolutely true to make for discovery. But I do have to say one thing. When I go into your stores or whatever, I get distracted by like the other little things that you have there.
Everybody needs a ball pen, cut paper,
Exactly. There's
paper.
so many books. I didn't.
Buying copy paper then.
I didn't know that there was so many different kinds of ball pens and Sharpies and different markers. I guess I'm just used to like the traditional stuff.
Also.
So thank you so much, Xandra. And of course, if you have questions for her, please put them in our chat box on Zoom, in our Q&A box, or in the comments section here on Facebook. So we'll talk to you a little bit later. Thank you so much. And of course, we're going to end with our final panelist. Our final panelist for today is a children's book publisher, editor, and author who has published over 150 books focusing on Filipino culture and history under her company, Tahanan Books. She's also written a picture book called Ay Nako, which won a Philippine National Children's Book Award. She's also the editor of the Manila Critics Circle finalist, Hanggang sa Muli, Until We Meet Again, Homecoming Stories for the Filipino Soul, and Anthropology of Prose and Poetry by Filipino diasporic writers. All right, to get her perspective, please welcome Reni Roxas.
Thank you, Migs. Thank you, Cherise. I'm very happy to be here, and both of you are like a breath of fresh air. And believe me, as we're all trying to pull out of this pandemic, we need fresh air. My name is Reni Roxas, and I am publisher and editor-in-chief of Tahanan Books. We are celebrating our 30th anniversary next year, having published over 150 titles that celebrate Philippine culture and history. The vast majority of our titles is children's books. Just wanted to check, are you all seeing me online?
Yes.
Oh, you are, okay.
I thought I'd smile.
Okay. I thought I would tackle two issues in my talk. The first half will cover my personal anecdotal experiences as a female professional in publishing. The second half will address my company's efforts to reach out to Filipino readers in the diaspora. So let's dive in. What does it mean to be a woman in publishing today? To answer that question, pasensya na po, I will have to take you back in time when I first started out in publishing. I was 25 years old and living in New York City, the publishing capital of the world. When I landed my first job in children's books, I had just come from an entry-level job in the field of broadcasting, having worked a year in CBS News. It was a cutthroat place to work, where almost all of the positions in power were held by white males. When I switched over to publishing, the work environment was radically different, and what a welcome change it was. I had an entry-level job for a much lower salary, yes, but here in the field of children's books, it was the women who held positions of power. The first publisher I ever worked for, Phyllis Fogelman of Dial Books, had a male secretary. The executive editor was a woman, the senior editors were women, the production editor who flew to Southeast Asia to oversee the printing of our books was a woman. Most every boss I worked directly for was female. Is it any wonder that I felt right at home in children's books? In the 8 years I spent working for publishing companies in New York City, I had the occasion to meet Isaac Asimov. Asimov was a brilliant science and science fiction writer and the author of the hit novel, I, Robot. The legend that grew around Isaac Asimov is that he was so prolific, he had 4 manuscripts in progress na nakasalang in 4 typewriters going all at once. The joke was that Asimov would submit a manuscript faster than the publisher could mail him a contract. It was also cautioned around the office that if you were a young and single woman, never be left alone in an office with him. At the time this happened, I think I was 27 years old and Asimov was 67. At a cocktail party hosted by our publishing office at the time where I handled children's book marketing, I did the brave act of introducing myself to him because after all, I was responsible for marketing his books. So I said to him during the party, "Hi, my name is Reni. I handle children's book marketing here." "What did you say?" he asked, cupping his ear. The room was loud with ambient noise of people talking. I said, speaking louder, "Hi, I'm Reni." He took a step back and raised an eyebrow. "What? You're ready?" And he laughed at his own sexual innuendo. In today's Me Too movement, I don't think he could have gotten away with it. Fast forward some 10 years to 1996. I am now co-publisher of Tahanan Books, having moved to Manila in 1991. We are publishing a biography of Jose Rizal titled Indio Bravo, based on the manuscript of Mrs. Asuncion Lopez Bantug. Mrs. Bantug is a petite and soft-spoken lady. She is the granddaughter of Rizal's elder sister, Narcisa, and was known to have sat on her uncle Pasiano Rizal's lap and asked him stories about his brother Jose. Mrs. Bantug's manuscript would later be the source of many tales about our national hero. One day, Tahanan hosted a lunch for the creative team we had assembled to work on the book. It was a powerhouse dream team with Sylvia Mendez Ventura on board to co-write, the illustrious Nick Joaquin to edit, and Ben Cab to do the illustrations. I remember that luncheon. I remember Nick Joaquin laughing and talking while swigging down a bottle of San Miguel beer. At some point in the conversation, Nick Joaquin turned to me and said, "Get me the manuscript, girl." Mind you, I was the hostess of this lunch and the publisher of the book. And the great Nick Joaquin had just turned to me, not bothering to know my name, and told me to get the manuscript, girl. While we were all working on the book, it was discovered that Nick, while editing Mrs. Bantug's manuscript, was himself writing a biography of Rizal for the Philippine Centennial Commission, no doubt using Mrs. Bantug's manuscript as a resource. This betrayal of Mr. Joaquin created a private uproar in our circle. We were all mad at Nick for not treating the matter as an obvious conflict of interest. But it was the soft-spoken Mrs. Bantug who, even over the objections of her own husband, said, "If the great Nick Joaquin wants to use my manuscript as a reference for his own book, I consider it a compliment." When others went low, Mrs. Bantug went high. I like to tell this story as an example of the grace of women and how it is their strength of character that can win the day sometimes. I'll be the first to admit that even after having come so far in my career, I am still carrying the remnant baggage of feelings of inferiority in a world where women have basically had to fight for what they want. To understand our rightful role in society, we must be made self-aware of the insidious and pervasive influences that seek to undermine our power and potential as women. It had to take Kelly Marie Tran, a young Vietnamese American actress, to make people like myself aware of how our self-perception as women has been defined for too long by how we are viewed by members of the opposite sex. In an op-ed she wrote in the New York Times, and that I think all young women should read, Trans said, I had been brainwashed into believing that my existence was limited to the boundaries of another person's approval. I had been tricked into thinking that my body was not my own, that I was beautiful only if someone else believed it, regardless of my own opinion. This is what it is to be a woman in a society that has taught its daughters that we are worthy of love only if we are deemed attractive by its sons. This is the world I grew up in, but not the world I want to leave behind. Another hero of mine is Hilda Cordero Fernando. Hilda, who passed away last August at the age of 90, was a free spirit who stopped at nothing to become who she wanted to be, despite the barriers of living in a male-dominated world. She was an acclaimed writer and publisher, a fashion diva, a theater designer, a cultural icon, a wife, and mother of 4. How did she do it? She was, as they say in Filipino, matigas ng ulo. Hilda said, all the so-called successes of my professional life were due to stubbornness, tigas ng ulo, because I never learned. Even that I never learned, I fought for. I kept forever hitting my head against closed doors. Today, there are many more closed doors to new things that I know nothing about. But when you are sure you have a good original idea and convinced that it will work, bang a determined head against the door. It will split open faster than your head will. And there will be magic behind that door that you never dreamed possible. Here in the United States, the publishing field is dominated by a cohort of publishing houses called the Big Five. They are the Hachette Book Group, HarperCollins, Macmillan, Penguin Random House, and Simon & Schuster. In a study of 10,000 books reviewed by the New York Times Review, 2/3 of them were written by men. In the New York Times bestseller list, which is the dream for many writers, men hold the top spots, although recently that gap is closing. So I say, let's invoke Hilda's words. As women, let's keep banging on doors. Let's keep banging on doors upon doors. Let's keep crashing the glass ceilings. Let's keep claiming our place in the world. Now, I didn't mean to sound so mean about Nick Joaquin, who is without question one of the greatest writers our country has ever had. To address the second half of my talk, I want to share his quote. The identity of a Filipino today is of a person asking what his identity is. What about Filipinos living in the diaspora? Are they a potential marketplace of readers for Philippine publishers? Among my fellow speakers, the speakers here tonight, I find myself in the rather unique position of straddling 2 worlds. A dozen years ago, I left Manila and moved with my teenage boys to Seattle, Washington, and I now divide my time between the Pacific Northwest and Manila. I have joined the ranks of the dispersed, a tribe whose heart remains in 2 places. Technology has been my friend and an indispensable bridge to my staff on the other end of the Pacific Ocean in Makati. To this day, I am able to manage Tahanan through emails, Viber, and now Google Meetup and Zoom. When we first moved here, I was excited to share my books with PhilAms. My sons and I would attend PhilAm festivals. We would set up a table and sell our books. In my own naive way, I suppose, I thought PhilAms would naturally flock to our table and buy our books. But I got a mixed reaction instead. Some were happy to see the books. Others were apathetic. But one question stood out. What about us? The Philams asked. Who is going to tell our story? The question gave rise to an anthology I collected and edited that came out in 2011, titled Hanggang sa Muli, Homecoming Stories for the Filipino Soul. In the course of my researching for this anthology, I discovered two distinct types of Filipino living in the diaspora. Since I am based in the United States and sell books to a predominantly American market, I shall use a Filipino in America as an example of a Filipino living in the diaspora. Here in the US, there are two types of Filipinos. There are the Filipino Americans, those like myself who have deep emotional and cultural ties to the home country. There are the Pinoys. These are the Pinoys who are homesick all the time, who will search high and low for a fellow kababayan, who will eat sinigang na hipon in your kitchen and ransack your cupboards for a jug of patis. Carmen Guerrero Nakpil so charmingly described this homesickness in her timeless essay, Where's the Patis? And then there are the American Filipinos, those who more than likely were born in the States and were raised on a matrix of American principles and traditions. I realized this distinction the day I met a Pinoy who ate rice with a fork instead of a spoon. Some of them have never been to the Philippines or haven't visited their homeland in years. For those immigrants struck by a terrible homesickness, the writer Jessica Hagedorn described their restless, wandering soul best. I return only to depart. Manila, New York, San Francisco, Manila, Honolulu, Detroit, Manila, Guam, Hong Kong, Zamboanga, Manila, New York, San Francisco, Tokyo, Manila again, Manila again, Manila again. But no matter how Filipino you are, there are two constants that are passed from generation to generation without fail: our love of family and our passion for native cuisine. Also, if you pinch somebody and she jumps and says, "Ay, aray," then you know she's Filipino. As the saying goes, you can take a Filipino out of the Philippines, but you can't take the Philippines out of a Filipino. Another part of my research findings in working on the anthology showed that characteristically, the first wave of Filipinos who came to the United States immersed themselves in the host country's culture. Their mission was survival in a foreign land. Learning to speak English was an essential tool for survival. The result, the mother tongue, Filipino, was often sacrificed for the other tongue, all in the quest that these migrants' children will grow up better assimilated into their host culture. It is this second generation who is eager now to explore the culture of their lost heritage. These children have now grown up to be parents themselves. They are no longer encumbered with a drive to assimilate. They want to learn Filipino. They want to teach the language to their young children. These are my customers. These are the people who are placing orders for our books, books like Amy Capel and Ori Ambao's picture book, From Manila with Love. The quest for our cultural identity continues, and books that introduce Filipino children living abroad to their heritage and roots can go a long way in fulfilling that quest. And how about the prospect of Filipino-American writers getting proper recognition in the West? In a 2019 blog post that recommended 32 contemporary essential American Asian literary writers, only 2 were Filipinos, Patrick Rosal and Oliver de la Paz. Both are poets. I look forward to the day when more Phil-Am writers will penetrate the bestseller lists. Fortunately, there are encouraging signs in our favor. Slowly, the media landscape is shifting. With the recent success of the South Korean films Parasite and Minari, publishing houses are more open to publishing books representing a diversity of the human experience. Allow me to take a moment now to touch briefly on the effect of the pandemic and e-commerce on our publishing business. At Tahanan Books, we operate 2 online stores, one in the Philippines using Philippine currency, and another website in the US where we sell books in US dollars. After streamlining these 2 websites through our social media accounts, we were happy to see a giant spike in online sales, some months as high as 500% over sales of the year before. This trend is true for both our domestic and North American markets. In 2019, pre-pandemic, our online sales contributed to a mere 10% of our domestic Philippine annual sales. Historically, we relied on brick and mortar retail outlets and traditional resellers. But the unexpected, unprecedented arrival of the pandemic, coupled with the emergence of e-commerce, altered the selling landscape profoundly for my company. In May through July 2020 alone, what we earned in those 3 months equaled our total online sales for the year 2019. Who are buying our books today? Why, children and parents stuck at home, of course, homeschooling families, and small independent resellers that came out of the woodwork, many of them mothers looking to earn extra income during the lockdown. A few customers approached us looking to purchase book bundles that they could donate to community libraries and charitable organizations. A nice offshoot of this was that new avenues of communication were opened between us and our buyers. Communicating directly with our customers helped us decide which titles to reprint as an answer to demands of the market. Going back to our US and Canadian customers, some of you may be curious to ask, who is buying our Filipiniana books here in North America? I picked at random the addresses on 4 of our last US orders. And I kid you not, this is like totally random. These are just our last 4 orders. One customer lives in Oxnard, California. Another lives in New Hudson, Michigan. Another in Columbus, Ohio. And another lives in Surrey, Vancouver, Canada. Filipinos live everywhere. I'm not sure if there is a place in the world where a Filipino cannot be found. As expected, I would estimate that 90% of the people who order our books in North America are women. After all, it is the mother that is called in our native culture, ang ilaw ng tahanan, which is to say that in Philippine culture, women are the light of the home. And what are the men? They are the haligi, the pillars upholding the structure, providing the foundation and strength to the family. What we need then is a harmonious blend of men and women working together to uphold the lives of our children. In closing, I wish to recount my favorite moment in my 37-year journey as a publishing professional. I shall never forget that one afternoon when a dad, a father in his late 50s, approached me at a book fair. He stepped up to me out of a crowd of people milling about and said simply to me, "My children grew up with Tahanan Books. I have received no greater compliment. Thank you."
So much, Lenny. Amazing presentation there. I do have a question to ask you. Typewriters, what is that?
I give my age away, and I think you just revealed your age, Migs.
You know I know exactly what a typewriter is. I used one of those, but I want to feel like like those Gen Xers,
Actually, when we started our publishing program, we started it in our attic, and we had one of the first computers of Apple.
Was
like the
it the
Mac.
one that was it the one that was like the big boxy one with the keyboard attached to it?
Yes, well, it was bigger in those days. It wasn't exactly the Lisa. I think it was the second edition.
Well, now you know where. Now you know where I started out from. But no, that's really an amazing story that you shared with us, and especially like telling us that, you know, the four last people who ordered. So you had California, Michigan, Ohio, and Vancouver, and those are all different places around North America. You know, like if you're for our viewers out there, if you know the geography of like North America, like you have Oxnard, you have California here, you have Michigan here in the middle, then you have Ohio right here in Vancouver, and these are places that, you know, you don't normally. Well, you know that there are Filipinos in Vancouver and different parts of California, but you know, you never know what the concentration is. And the fact that you're able to reach out to the diaspora is just that's an amazing thing, because not too many people reach out to them. And that, you know, that kind of hit me a little hard earlier, is that when you were saying the two types of Filipinos, you had Filipino Americans and then American Filipinos and the assimilation. So it's something that I really, you know, that I identify with, because I do consider myself a Filipino American. I don't consider myself an American Filipino. You know, I take the best of both worlds. And, you know, the stories about representation, like, you know, that's one of the main things that people are trying to do right now. They're trying to document it. Like you have Dawn who passed away, whatever. And she was like one of those pioneers of like Phil-Am publishing books, you know, about the experience there. Not too many people get a chance to talk about that. But, you know, I'm sure I know that we had a talk last week, just for the technical rehearsals of this. And, you know, some of your books have been used for the popular PCNs. They've been integrated into like the Filipino Culture Nights, where they take like these old stories and then they retell them in a different way, but they're using your stories because that's what's accessible to them.
That's so good to hear, Megs. And you know, the amazing thing is you're saying you're giving us the credit of reaching out to these Phil-Ams. That's not the case. They're the ones finding us. You know, they're the ones going online because they have the drive.
Because that was one of the things I think for me growing up in the U.S. I was not able to find too many material, not much material, unless I either visit the Philippines or even like you said earlier, like the Filipino fairs. You know, those are the only times that you're able to get like Filipino objects, like Filipiniana objects. Like you can find your barong there, you can find food there, you can find books there. So it's great that you're able to share that experience with us. And of course, if you have questions for Reni, please put them in our Q&A box or here on Facebook. We're going to be tallying them in just a few minutes so that we can answer them for our open forum. But I'm just going to give you a rundown exactly of what happened if you just joined us. Now, our first speaker, Ani Almario, she talked about regarding trusting female leaders during a crisis, and that they are more trustworthy during times of crisis due to IEM, which is interpersonal emotion management. She wears three hats as the president of the Book Development Association of the Philippines, as also the VP of Product Development at Adarna House. And she also let us know that Adarna is female-led. They did take feedback from parents during doing homeschooling to develop materials for them to use during the pandemic, adapting to the new normal by shifting online. She's also the director of the Raya School and helped create the Kalinga project for summer months for the staff and faculty. And an amazing thing is that they also did collaborations with other progressive schools to create dialogue. And we had Ann Ordinario. She talked about her experiences getting into the industry and highlights of her career, where she started her journey in workshops in Manila and also her outreach into different areas of the Mindanao region. Now, one of the things that she did touch upon was that in the beginning, she was told that it was a hard business to penetrate. And so that gave her the drive to self-publish so that she could prove that she can make it despite the negative feedback that she got. And of course, she started off with two books, The Crying Trees and Smelly Fruit. And of course, Crying Trees was the winner of the grand prize in the Samsung Kids Time Authors Award. So she actually started her career outside of the Philippines at a book fair in Singapore. And she also let us know that one of her touching moments was on the plane when she met a passenger who had just bought her book at the book fair. And she ended by saying, the power to change the life of a child through the story, is to write from the heart. We also heard from Xandra Ramos. She talked about publishing in the time of COVID. She talked about her Nanay Ko Ring, opened doors for many in the publishing industry and made them accessible to everyone, and also made affordable versions of the books with her motto, read more, learn more, earn more. She also said that books should be considered essential, especially with these different ECQ, GCQs, whichever letter that you want to change it there. But during this quarantine, you know, people are trying to figure out exactly what is essential, but books are essential. So they've opened up different channels for everyone, like shopping online or via text, and then using shopping apps to purchase books. And that also during this lockdown period, they released 40 books. And she also said that they rely on authors to develop a community of readers to help them sell their books, and how they've also shifted to using online platforms such as Zooms for book launches and webinars. And she also touched upon developing ebooks, you know, and how digital rights management and developers, and of course, copyrights and IP rights come into play. And then we ended with Reni Ross, who is celebrating their 30th anniversary next year, and how she started her journey in New York, and how a majority of the children's book side leadership were female. She also gave us a little insight into talking about the publishing of the Indio Bravo, the story of Jose Rizal, and the conflicts of interest behind the scenes. She also let us know about the different limitations and boundaries that were set in society and how it helped her break barriers to create her own publishing company. And then she also talked about the representation of Philams in the diaspora, giving us two types of Filipinos, the Filipino Americans and the American Filipinos, with regards to assimilation and of course them finding their identity by living abroad, and how Tahanan has shifted to online and has seen a spike in online sales both in the Philippines and North American markets. So again, we've got your questions all lined up here. We're going to be doing our open forum in just a few. If we could get all of our speakers here on board, turn on those cameras. Let's see those pretty faces here. All right. I think we are almost there. Yes. Okay, we are ready. Miss Annie, if we could get you as well. Let's see, who else are we missing? Yes, we've got everybody all here. Okay, so now with that, it's time to welcome back our speakers for the post-pandemic futures. The future is female. Now, ladies, what I appreciate about each and every one of you is that you guys told your story through experiences and how your journey has brought words to life through numerous printed pages. Now, we are making the shift here. I've got a quick question for each of you. So I'll go down one by one, and I will ask you this question: hard copy versus soft copy. So Annie,
Hard copy, hands down.
Marianne,
Hard copy.
hard copy.
Yeah.
Xandra,
Soft copy, I like to read it in bed.
and Reni.
Of course, if I could afford the hardcover, I get the hardcover, but unfortunately in the Philippines, most people can only afford the soft cover. So
But it is one of those things that, you know, that I know when I moved to the Philippines back in 2005, that was the big shock for me. And, you know, Sandra said it earlier, you know, that they made books a lot more affordable, because, like, you know, in the US, if you're buying a book, it's about $40. It could go $40 and up. And then when I came to the Philippines, like, wow, you could get a book for 250 pesos. What is the difference? Because I didn't know any of those. I mean, I really never thought about any of that type of stuff until I moved to the Philippines. You know, is it difference in texture of paper or that kind of thing? But, you know, a lot of questions are coming out here via our Q&A and of course in our comment section here. So I'm going to start you guys out with one question. And here's our starter question for each of you, and we'll go down the line. You've each carved out a niche for yourself in your respective markets. Now, what advice can you give to people looking at going into the publishing field? So I guess we'll start off with Annie.
I would say look for a good mentor. I think that worked well for me when I entered the family business, and I would say the best mentor is really my mom, because when I was working with her, I learned a lot, not just about the business, but about management and dealing with people, and that has really been key for me. Aside from that, I have a lot of and publishers who became instrumental in my education as as a publisher, including Karina Bolasco of Ateneo de Manila Press. I really look up to her, and they've taught me the basics, and that has been very useful. So when you look for a job in publishing, look for a woman who can mentor you.
Thank you so much for that. Marianne, if you'll answer the question for us.
For me, there is no rush if you want to go into publishing. Publishing is not only about coming up with a book, it is also a business which you have to manage. Like you have to find a competent writer, a very good illustrator, a layout artist, marketing team, editors, the best printing press, and so many little details establishing yourself as a good publisher. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Xandra, if you could give us your insights.
Well, I think we, as a publisher, we have to be aware that we have to balance commercial considerations with creative pursuits. And the challenge is how to balance both. It's great to win awards, but the important thing is you have to sell through the books. So, I mean, what's the use of having a book, but nobody's buying them? The goal is to get more readers to buy your book. So I guess that would start with understanding the market, your readers, and respecting them, and producing the books that they would want to read.
Thank you so much. And Reni?
Well, the first thing I would say is don't go into it for the money. You're not going to get rich. More than likely, you won't get rich. And the second thing is you have to love books. You have to be a reader. You have to love being around books. And the more if you could get yourself hired in a publishing environment where you're exposed to all the different facets of publishing, from printing to marketing to, when I first got started, I was an all-around assistant, and I got exposed to the art, I worked with the art director, production editor, et cetera. And usually if you work with a small publishing company, you can get that kind of exposure. So yeah, that's what I would say. You have to really, really love books.
No, that's good. Thank you so much for all of your insights there, because, again, we're moving from the tradition, we're going from traditional into a digital at this point. And, we have another question here is, which do you guys feel is the better setup, a working from home setup or office setup with regards to your publishing workflow? Because, I mean, you guys have had to develop different things in order to remain competitive, be relevant, and at the same time is, make sure that your materials are getting out there. Do you guys feel that working from home, or do you think working from an office has helped in your new publishing workflow? I guess let's start with Annie.
Siyempre maraming benefits yung working from home. Number one ay walang traffic, di ba? But I do miss reading a book while in traffic. So wala na akong ganun na moments. Pero I would say that I miss the office setup just because may mga, sabi nga nila, happy accidents, including accidental ideas that brew when you're all together in a room, or when you strike up a conversation, a random conversation with somebody from the office. Yun yung nawawala. Nothing is random now. Everything is done deliberately. So nami-miss ko yun. Yung randomness na yun minsan give birth to innovation.
Thank you so much. Marianne.
Gusto ko yung nakikita ko kasi even with children, when we sign the books for them, you are really happy doing it for them. You talk to them. And with this situation right now, the pandemic, we have to plan in order to anticipate any financial, technological, and economic situation. And right now, we have to go online just to sell. And the questions like, how do we embrace the new normal? We need a lot of resiliency as publishers for these uncertain times. And for me, those who can survive are those who are willing to accept change and embrace the difficulties that goes with the change. Parang right now, ang feelings namin, I don't know if Ani or everybody feels this way, parang matira na lang ang matibay Like for the printed book, for example, we love to see the printed books and the kids signing for us, or you can even hug them. But how will you avoid the contamination of the virus? So we can sterilize all the printed items because you will damage the printed paper. Para bang ganon? So basically, there is a resistance in using the printed paper. So for a few more years, there is only one way, I think, kahit gusto namin na face-to-face with our employees and everything, or we wanted to attend book fairs. Kasi masaya siya eh. We don't have a choice to sell online, to go online.
Miss Sandra?
Well, I think it's lucky that the publishing process can be done all online in a work from home setup. But I think it would also be good to, maybe be able to meet once in a while. I know I was planning to visit some authors, but after the new lockdown, it it didn't push through. It's hard to do, let's say, photo shoots for cookbooks and so on. So I think, if we could, maybe we don't go to 100% working in the office, but it would be good to be able to go from time to time to collaborate and so on and do other stuff. And of course, I miss the, we had the circuit of events in the book industry. Like there was a Dia del Libro in April, MIBF in September, various things, book, and we had the Readers and Writers Festival in July. And this is actually part of the Philippine International Literary Festival of NBDB, but we're doing it online. So we miss the interaction when you say, you just bump into your fellow publishers in the hall. We only see Reni in book fairs, actually. Yeah, we miss that connection and interaction. But fortunately, you can still produce a book all online, but the fulfillment people for online sales, etc., would have to, the bookstore people, of course, have to go to the stores and the warehouses.
Thank you so much. Reni?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, Xandra only sees me in the book fairs, but she does make the effort to come around every time just to say hi. Our setup at Tahanan is kind of different because I'm based in the US for 3/4 of the year, and our staff is in our Legazpi Village office. But I think if I had my way, I would really like the office, to keep the office environment, because when you work out of your house, I don't know about my fellow speakers, but there's so many distractions at home. There's the refrigerator, there's the television, so unless you have the discipline, it's going to be pretty hard. And I sort of like,
I have a sleeping cat on my lap right now.
oh,
Oh,
you don't see it.
oh,
but-
the cat.
Yeah, so I mean, I sort of want that kind of world again, where people come to the office, see each other, are able to touch each other, meet people face to face. I miss that, and I'm hoping it'll be shorter than what Marianne is saying, that it'll be less than a few years from now that we can all get back into that world.
Yeah,
No,
we'll see each other
it is fun,
during
yeah.
during
sorry,
book
sorry.
fairs.
No, but it's something that I think it's more along the lines that, it's something that we just don't want to accept at this point, that this is going to be the new normal for right now, that we have to be doing this digitally, and so, the fact that, that each of you have found a way to create a new niche to get your information out there is amazing. But yeah, it's like one of those things where you're kind of like looking back on memories. I remember during this time at the book fair, or this type of, I remember running into this person, because, now that I look back on it, I used to go to like El Dia del Libro, the one that they had over in over the Ayala Triangle, and like those type of festivals, whatever, you run into people and I'm like, you read a book, like, there are like certain people, like it's that social interaction. I think that a lot of us are missing, like the physical social interaction that we're having here. And it's just, I guess it's just one of those things that we have to kind of accept. But you guys have done a great job of trying to reach out to your different communities and your and your audiences to still make that connection, and just God willing, that everything starts moving in the right direction where we can go back to some of the activities that we used to do before. Sorry, another question that we have here is, how do publishers usually connect with their authors? Do authors reach out to you first, or is it vice versa? So I guess again, we'll go down the line. Annie?
We do it a couple of ways, but Adarna actually publishes from the slush pile. We call them the cold submissions. So people can just submit to Adarna and they'll surely be read. So you can do that. Some writers reach out to me personally or through their friends. You can also do that. So we're not as strict as maybe the big foreign publishing houses.
Marianne?
Yeah, currently I publish my own books, so I have not experienced publishing another story. But we're into that because we offered some contests here in Mindanao or competitions for new writers.
Xandra?
Well, for those that the authors that we've already published, for the authors whose books we already published, we'll collaborate with them on and brainstorm with them on what's the next book, taking insights from what's selling in the store and what people are looking for in the pandemic, and so on. And there's also like a lot of referrals. So it could go both ways. Sometimes we pitch a book to an author, like, why don't you do this? Or why don't you make it like this? But sometimes authors come also with their ideas.
Yeah. Thank you. Reni?
Yeah, we do read manuscripts in our slush pile. I hate that phrase, slush pile. And I have to be candid and honest. It's very hard if you're a first-time writer and you submit something that's unsolicited. It's very hard for Tahanan to publish you. And please don't take it personally, because every publishing house has limited resources. Like, we could come out with just 5 books a year. And so we really have to be careful about what we publish. So please don't take it personally, but also take a leaf out of Ann Ordinario's book, which is she self-published. It is possible in today's age, like, you don't have to get publishing houses to always reject your work. You can go out and self-publish. And if you have the drive and you have the perseverance, you can make it work. Look at Marianne's example.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because I don't know how to say this properly without sounding like too mean, or like it sounds as bullying, because everybody has a creative mind, and they think that their work is, this is the best, this is the next bestseller, this is the next bestseller, whatever. And it's not that people have to be put back down to ground zero, whatever. I think people just also need to realize is, like, do you know the audience that you're writing for? Is it, you guys each touched upon it, you want to make sure that you get certain material out there, but there's also that business aspect. Is it going to sell? And I think a lot of people tend to forget that point, or whatever, that it's still a business. You can still be creative and get your work out there. It just depends on what are your different avenues. So again, we want to create a dialogue. So if you guys have questions for each other, you guys can feel free to do that. But we have lots of people that are asking questions here. So I'm just going to go down the line. Ms. Annie, someone is asking, what books can you recommend to young girls to teach them about female leadership or even feminism?
I actually answered the question on chat. We just published a book about Vice President Leni Robredo. It's called Dancing Waters. And we really wanted to publish it because we wanted an example for young girls of a true a great example of kindness and compassion and female leadership. So we really wanted to come out with their story, also to thank her for all the good work she's done for our country. And I hope that young girls will read the story and be inspired as much as we were.
And we also have one more other question here for you, with regards to the Raya School. What were the challenges you had in developing the personalized learning materials for your school? Because again, we touched upon it earlier that, you know, bigger schools are looking to the progressive schools to kind of give the direction exactly how they're going to go. Like, what were the challenges that you had in developing these?
Yeah, we have a lot of challenges because we don't use textbooks in our school, which is the usual practice in Philippine schools. So we develop our own materials, and they're all teacher made. So you can just imagine how long it takes to develop the materials, how tedious it is for us to plan the curriculum and to revisit it every year, because that's what we do every summer. All the teachers come together, and the curriculum and the approach to teaching and learning is really collaborative, and I would say very democratic across the faculty.
Thank you so much. Now we have some questions for you, Ms. Marianne. What was it like growing up without having that kind of Mindanao representation in literature? Because I think the question stems from, you know, that there's lots of Tagalog books, there's lots of Bisaya books, but you know that people had a lot of access to. So for someone growing up in Mindanao, what was it like growing up without that kind of Mindanao representation?
That is the very reason why I started to write stories for children. Because as I have mentioned a while ago, most of the children are asking, we don't have any stories about Mindanao. There is no story about our culture, our traditions. And during that time, hindi pa naman kasi uso masyado yung online. So walang choice ang mga kids but to buy fairy tale na mga stories like Cinderella, like what I have mentioned a while ago. So I think it was a big step for us to create the project, the BARM project, because we were able to top the culture of Mindanao. So we came up with a lot of stories from the different regions. And I think it's a starting point. And we're also right now developing writers and illustrators coming from Mindanao, because I also wanted to help them, because I have experienced the difficulties of breaking into the industry and starting as a writer, illustrator, or publisher. Because we're focusing on that. Our publishing company is focusing on developing stories from Mindanao.
And we have another question here is, do you hold writing workshops in Zamboanga City? And if so, they're interested in submitting their manuscript where they can send for evaluation. So I guess in Mindanao, do you have different workshops or different ways that people can reach, that you guys reach out in the various regions?
I had a workshop in Zamboanga City when I was working with the BARM project, and I was there 3 times. But it was more on, we're focusing on the Muslim people. But right now, because of the pandemic, I suggest that you can go online and check NBDB's Buklatan. You can join our workshops on writing for children, because we also have a schedule this year. Just check it out.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we have some questions from Ms. Xandra. Have you seen a change in the kind of books people have been seeking during the pandemic versus before the pandemic?
Well, I think people also took the opportunity to revisit favorite classics like this illustrated mythology by Edith Hamilton has been selling, you know, like go-to books for self-help, subtle art. But the thing is the celebrity authors or the name, those established authors, those are the ones selling. And of course, cookbooks, as I mentioned, are selling, and self-help business.
And well, I guess, well, cookbooks, yes. Cookbooks, yes. I love the fact that, that you could be looking at the cookbook and then, tumaltalsik yung isang toyo dyan. or oil.
But we've been influenced by media like Netflix. So a lot of Netflix or movie tie-ins are selling as well. So Bridgerton and like now the Shadow and Bone Grisha series of Labor Dugo. She was here as our guest a few years ago.
Yes, because I think our next question here is because with the introduction of the Netflix and chill, a lot of these showings that they're having are all based on books, and so there's always that discrepancy. Yes, there's always that discrepancy where people are like, it was better in the book. So I mean, I guess they're trying to ask your perspective, like, okay, so you mentioned Bridgerton, I don't know, I've seen the series, but I have not read the book. I don't know, is it steamier in like
it's in the book because it's your imagination, I think. There's also like a lot of books suddenly went up the New York Times bestseller list because they were featured on TikTok under Book Talk. So I was surprised why my daughter suddenly looked for certain books that came out like a few years ago. Apparently, it was recommended on Book Talk.
Yeah, I think that's one of the I like that's what it seems from the questions that are here. It's like, is there a resurgence of people looking for books? Because think about it, like they're only getting released on Netflix now. I'm trying to base it from the question here and try to come out in a more concise way.
I would say not Netflix and chill, but Netflix and read.
Mm-hmm. So it's more. Let me see it. Let me see how it is on Netflix first. So I have like that picture in my mind, and then let's see how it is in the book. Because like one person that I do know is like, the book was better for Crazy Rich Asians. Like they said, it was better than the movie. So I guess people are starting
to visualize that world, and I think the book helps you understand the inner thoughts of characters. Like the backstory of characters like Astrid in Crazy Rich Asians is more fleshed out in the book, but you can enjoy both. That's the thing.
So there you go. Instead of Netflix and chill, Netflix and read. Well, then read. Well, up to you. It's really a matter of preference and which order that you guys want to go. Thank you so much. All right, we have questions for Reni here. Now, how do you like? You already told people about how you lead Tahanan in the Philippines while you're based in the U.S. Now, somebody asked with regards to the assimilation process. Does Tahanan look to giving Filipino Americans in the diaspora a different voice through your publishing, or are you guys going down that avenue?
Right now, not as of the moment, although we do have a couple of writers and artists who are based in the US, people who have left the Philippines and are now working in the US. So we do stay in touch with them. But we find that if we can tap Philippine-based talent, authors and artists, to write books for Filipino children in the Philippines, that also dovetails with an appeal to the foreign market as well. So whatever we come out with, especially our language books, like teaching Filipino, like the parallel bilingual format, Filipinos living abroad like those books, especially when it's language-based. And we're also doing some music books as well. We're publishing folk songs from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
Okay, and one other question here. It also has to do with regards to the identity of Filipinos living abroad. With regards to your books, like what happens to be like the bestseller? Like what do you think? Because you said one memory you had is like a dad approached you at a book fair and said his children grew up with your books. So what is one of the books that that you would suggest to be? There you go.
Bahay Kubo. Everybody knows Bahay Kubo, right? From the top of the Philippines to the bottom of the Philippines. So yeah, this is one of our bestsellers, and our language books as well. And our book Bandila, the story of the Philippine flag.
Thank you so much. And as we're closing things off, thank you so much to everybody that has sent all their questions and comments via our Q&A via Zoom and of course on our Facebook. We've got 2 remaining questions for our panelists here. And this question is, are there any potential collaborations in the future that we might see with all of your groups? So I guess I'll leave it as an open forum to whoever wants to attack the question first.
Oh, I was just texting my staff saying that I would love to work with Marianne someday on maybe a co-venture, because my grandmother is from Zamboanga City, and I have a special I have special place in my heart for Mindanao and its people. So I hope we can collaborate someday.
Yes, let's have a partnership.
Okay, good.
Yeah. We always see each other during the Manila International Book Fair.
Well, let's hope there'll be an in-person book fair this time. I don't know, this year.
Soon. Kasi it's like a family reunion actually mix at the Manila International Book Fair. We see each other, and we all share a passion for books and for publishing.
Now we have a question from one of our attendees here in the Zoom. They want to know, what is it that you are currently reading? So I guess I'll start off with Annie. What
am I currently reading?
Yes.
There are a bunch of books on my bedside. One of them is The Sympathizer, which I just finished, by Viet Nguyen, who was in the Philippines because of the Philippine Readers and Writers Festival that National Bookstore organizes. And then right now I'm also reading White Love by Vince Rafael, and somebody just gave me the biography of Father Nebres, which is published by Anvil.
Marianne?
Currently, I'm reading Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance by Angela Duckworth, because I think right now our lives is always full of failures, heartaches because of the pandemic, and the book says that success is not about luck or talent. It is about perseverance and patience. And I'm also reading the Bible now diligently every day, and we're also memorizing the verses and everything, and that's it. The Bible most of the time.
Xandra?
This question always stresses me out because I always have a bunch of books on my bedside pile. Actually, I have a bedside pile, a desk pile, and so on. But my good friend Ambeto Campos said that you can read books. Sometimes you can read them through or by chapter. So I'm reading Michelle Obama's books for adapted for young readers, because I just finished the Barack Obama book, and I'm also going back to this book by Father James Martin, who's a Jesuit. He has a book club right now on Jesus, a Pilgrimage. So I'm rereading a book that I've read before and following along on his book club, which is on his Facebook Live. So that's one of the good things about Facebook Live, is that you get to hear from authors even from in the US without traveling there.
Thank you so much. And Reni?
Yeah, I just finished reading a book written by my friend. It's called We Had No Rules, and it's about the queer gay culture. And I also just I couldn't put it down. We the Animals by Justin Torres. It's an amazingly beautiful book, especially even on the sentence level. I adore the stories of Doris Lessing, so I have her collection of stories by my bed. And I'm also reading George Saunders' book on craft, on writing fiction. It's called A Swim in a Pond in the Rain.
I just realized the time, and ladies, I'm very sorry that we've been going over time now, so we got to wrap things up here. So before we go, if you can please let everyone know exactly where they can find you, any projects that you might have coming up or events that you might have coming up online or in person, that type of thing. And if you could please share that with all of our viewers right now. So we'll start off with Ms. Annie.
Aklatan is happening again on Shopee in June, so watch out for that. And we also have a series of BDAP webinars on copy editing, on advanced editing, on developing a digital strategy for your company, and on copyright. So we're doing that with NBDB, and we hope you'll tune in as well.
Thank you so much. Marianne?
Yes, you can find our books at Shopee and Lazada, and we also have our own Facebook page. And actually, I read a question a while ago. I wanted to answer that. They were asking, where did you get your ideas in writing? So you can write a lot of stories for children, because I have been discussing about this during our workshops on how to write stories for children. So I would like to answer that question. You can write about nature, about animals, about children, or any character, about your kids, family, or work. But the basic question which I always ask during our workshop is, what do you want other people to know? And what is your message to the world? Like, for example, I want the world to know about war, how war affects children, how they experience violence, separation, and loss. So that's it. Just write something important that comes from your heart, because I read that question a while ago, so I wanted to answer that. Thank you.
No worries.
I just made it fast.
Miss Xandra?
Well, I would like to say, keep on reading. Encourage your kids to read. We also have some curated lists on our website. Suddenly, my daughter has read like 20 books just this year. My son also finished his required reading book, so I'm proud of them. Actually, they may have read more than my husband. I think is gonna try to do 100 books this year. So let's keep reading. Please follow us at National Bookstore on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, NBS Alert, and look for our official stores on Shopee and Lazada. Also, please follow Anvil Publishing, and we are also on Shopee and Lazada. Look for our official stores.
Thank you so much. Ms. Reni?
Yeah, we're available on our website. We have the Philippine website, and we're available on Amazon in the US, and also have a US-based website, tahananbooks.com. And just wanted to plug, we have a new book. It's up there on the screen, Selly's Crocodile. The author, Gabby Dansley, is very active promoting that book among schools, and also our Halo Halo history series, an award-winning series. They are also, I think they're speaking at Maria Montessori in a few days. So look for us online. Thank you.
And of course, we'll have all of these links to them on the Facebook page of NBDB. Now, before you ladies go, is it okay if we get like one group shot with everybody here? So again, if we can have our members from the National Book Development Board to please join us here online.
Therese.
And who will be, all right, Brian, if you can take those pictures. All right, let's smile on 1, 2, 3. And one more so that it looks good for the, one more, Brian. So it looks good for like, if we have a potential book cover, if you need like for that cartoon character, maybe I might be able to get, me or Brian might be able to get like, a little, here we go on 1, 2, 3. Thank you again to all of our speakers, Xandra Ramos-Padilla, Ani Almario, Reni Roxas, and Ann Ordinario for joining us here for today for the first post-pandemic futures with the topic, The Future is Female. Of course, this is being presented by the National Book Development Board as part of their 12th Philippine International Literary Festival's activities. And of course, it was such a pleasure and great learning experience to have listened to all four of you talk about your work as publishers. It's important work, and rest assured, the National Book Development Board will be here to work alongside you in empowering our publishers and creatives and making books more accessible for everyone. So again, I'm personally encouraging everybody and urging everyone to support more local titles or local editions of some of your favorite works. Our publishers, writers, illustrators, and designers need all the support they can get, especially during these difficult times. But you know, it's glad that we're able to get together safely here online, of course, in different time zones in different parts of the country. So again, we hope that we get a chance to meet up in person or whatever and get to celebrate everything here. So again, that concludes our first Post-Pandemic Futures webcast. And thank you again to everyone who joined us this afternoon. And we'll see you in the next webcast. So again, have a great weekend. Tomorrow it's May. And of course, we will see you guys all very soon. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you again. Thank you so much to all who stuck around.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Auntie. Miss
Xandra.
you.
Salamat kay Brian sa kay Jason. Sorry, pupunta na ako sa next ko.
No
Salamat
worries, no
po.
worries. Thank you. So sorry for going over time.